Welcome to Cherry Blossom BL Story, where emotions bloom and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's chapter.
Chapter 1. The desperate plea rain hammered the city like it had a personal grudge. Elias stood under the awning of Victor's building for a full minute before he could force his legs to move, water dripping from the hood of his black sweatshirt and pooling around his worn sneakers. 20 floors up was where the real monsters lived, the kind who wore $3,000 suits and smiled while they gutted companies for sport. His father's voice still rang in his ears from 3 hours earlier. "He'll listen to you, Elias. He's always had a soft spot." The hesitation in his father's tone had been louder than the words. They both knew what a soft spot really meant. Victor hadn't looked at Elias like a nephew since the summer Elias turned 15 and started wearing tighter shirts just to see what would happen. Nothing had happened then. Victor had simply stared too long, jaw tight, and left the room. Now the family business was drowning in red ink, suppliers were calling in debts, and the bank had stopped returning calls. Elias was the collateral. Everyone understood the math except maybe him. The private elevator opened directly into the penthouse. No lobby, no doorman, just black marble, low lighting, and the faint scent of expensive leather and bergamot. Victor was already waiting. He stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights fractured behind him like broken glass. Black dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, forearms corded and veined, no tie. The top 2 buttons were undone, revealing the hollow of his throat and the shadow of dark chest hair. He looked exactly like the man who'd once told Elias's father, in front of the whole family, that he would take care of things if anyone ever hurt the boy. Elias hated how his stomach flipped at the memory. "You're late," Victor said without turning around. "Traffic," Elias lied, "and rain." "And existential dread, pick one." Victor finally faced him. His eyes storm, grey, unreadable, traveled down Elias's body in one slow, deliberate sweep. Elias felt it like fingers. "Still wearing hoodies like you're 16, Victor observed. His voice was low, amused, dangerous. "Some things don't change. Some things do," Elias shot back, shoving his hands deeper into his pockets so they wouldn't shake. "Like how my dad's about to lose everything he ever built. You gonna help or just stand there looking pretty?" Victor's mouth curved, not quite a smile. More like a predator deciding the kill was already his. "Come here." Elias didn't move. Victor crossed the room in 4 strides. Up close he was taller than Elias remembered, broader, radiating heat and the faint smell of whiskey and aftershave. He stopped just inside Elias's personal space, close enough that Elias had to tilt his head back to meet his eyes. "Your father called me this morning," Victor said quietly. "Cried, actually. First time in 20 years. Said he'd do anything." A pause. "Then he said you would do anything." Elias's throat closed. "That's not, it is." Victor lifted a hand, brushed a wet strand of hair off Elias's forehead with surprising gentleness. "He offered you up like a fucking Christmas present, and I accepted." Lightning cracked outside. The room flashed white for half a second. Elias swallowed. "So what's the price tag? How much to keep the company afloat?" Victor's hand slid down, cupped the side of Elias's neck, thumb pressed lightly against his pulse. "I don't want money," he said. "I want this." His other hand moved fast, slid between Elias's thighs and closed over the denim. Covered bulge there, firm, possessive, no hesitation. Elias jerked, breath punching out of him. "What the fuck, uncle?" Victor didn't flinch at the word. If anything, his grip tightened, rolling once, slow and deliberate, then again harder. Elias's knees nearly buckled. "I'll wire the money tonight," Victor murmured, mouth close to Elias's ear. "Every cent your father needs. Tomorrow morning the accounts are clean, suppliers paid, bank off his back, but only if you give me this." He squeezed again, thumb circling the head through the fabric. "Right now, all of it." Elias's face burned. His body betrayed him instantly, cock thickening against Victor's palm despite the sick twist in his gut. He tried to laugh. It came out shaky. "You're serious? Deadly." Another grind of that big hand. Elias bit the inside of his cheek hard enough to taste copper. "If fine," he spat, voice cracking on the word, "but if I'm selling my ass for the family business, I want something too." Victor raised an eyebrow, amused. "Limited edition PS5, the black one with the custom faceplate, and don't cheap out on the controllers." For a second, maybe two, Victor looked genuinely surprised, then his lips curved into something dark and delighted. "Anything you want, kitten," he said softly. "Now strip." Elias's hands shook as he pulled the hoodie over his head. Rainwater dripped onto the marble. He towed off his sneakers, shoved jeans and briefs down in one clumsy motion. Cold air hit his bare skin. He stood there, pale, slender, half-hard, trying to look defiant instead of terrified. Victor looked at him like he was starving. Then he moved. One arm hooked around Elias's waist, the other under his thighs. He carried him to the wide leather couch like he weighed nothing, dropped him onto his back, and came down on top of him in the same motion. Elias's legs were shoved wide. Victor's mouth crashed over his brutal, claiming, tasting of whiskey and possession. Clothes tore. Elias's shirt ripped at the shoulder. Victor's belt clinked as it hit the floor. Then there was skin hot, rough everywhere. Fingers in his hair, teeth on his throat, a hand pinning his wrist above his head. Victor didn't ask, he took. Lube from somewhere Elias didn't see where. Two thick fingers pushed inside without warning. Elias arched, gasping, nails digging into Victor's shoulders. "Fucks, low down, you know." Victor's voice was gravel. "Been waiting too long." A third finger. Elias keened, thighs trembling. Then the blunt head of Victor's cock, pressing, breaching, sinking deep in one long, ruthless thrust. Elias screamed, half pain, half something darker. Victor didn't stop. He fucked him hard, deep, relentless leather creaking beneath them, rain drumming the windows, city lights painting their bodies in fractured silver. "You're mine now," Victor growled against his ear. "Every fucking inch." Elias hated how good it felt. Hated the way his body opened, arched, begged without words. Hated the coil of heat building low in his belly, the way his cock leaked against his stomach with every punishing stroke. Hated most of all the broken moan that tore out of him when Victor angled just right and hit that spot that made stars explode behind his eyes. He came like he'd been punched, shaking, sobbing, spilling between them while Victor fucked him through it, growling filthy promises into his neck. "Gonna keep you," Victor rasped as he chased his own release. "Gonna ruin you for anyone else. No one touches what's mine." Heat flooded inside him. Victor buried himself to the hilt and stayed there, shuddering, teeth sunk into Elias's shoulder hard enough to bruise. They stayed locked together for long minutes, rain, breathing, the faint metallic taste of blood where Elias had bitten his own lip. Eventually Victor pulled out slow, careful now, and gathered Elias against his chest. Big hand stroked down his spine, almost tender. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Elias laughed hoarse, bitter. "No, yes, fuck if I know." Victor pressed a kiss to his temple. "You will be." Elias closed his eyes. The aftershocks still rippled through him. Pleasure and shame and something terrifyingly close to relief. He didn't know what came next. He only knew one thing for certain. There was no going back. Chapter 2. The morning after sunlight sliced through the blackout curtains in cruel, narrow blades. Elias woke to the ache between his legs first, deep, bruised, deliciously used, and then to the heavy arm draped across his waist like an iron bar. Victor's breathing was slow and even against the back of his neck, chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. For one stupid second Elias let himself feel safe, then reality crashed in. He was naked in his uncle's bed. Cum had dried on his inner thighs. His shoulder throbbed where teeth had broken skin. And the company was saved, probably already saved, knowing Victor, but the price tag was still blinking red in his head. Carefully, Elias tried to slide out from under the arm. It tightened. "Where do you think you're going?" Victor's voice was rough with sleep, low and possessive. "A college," Elias muttered. "Some of us still have to pretend life is normal." Victor rolled him onto his back in one fluid motion, looming above him. Morning light caught the silver at his temples, made the gray of his eyes look almost soft, almost. "You're not going anywhere until we establish a few rules, kitten." Elias swallowed. His throat was raw from last night's screams. "Rules, right, because this is totally a normal uncle. Nephew dynamic." Victor's hand slid down Elias's stomach, fingers tracing the faint red marks he'd left on pale skin. "Rule 1, you don't leave this bed until I say so." His palm flattened over Elias's cock, already traitorously half-hard, and gave a lazy stroke. "Rule 2, you do exactly what I tell you today." No arguments, no sarcasm, just obedience. Elias tried to scoff. It came out more like a whimper when Victor's thumb circled the head. "And Rule 3, he managed." Victor's smile was slow, feral. "Rule 3 is you're going to spend the entire day remembering who owns this pretty little hole." He reached across to the nightstand. Elias heard a quiet click, something small and sleek being picked up. Then Victor shifted lower, nudging Elias's thighs apart with his knees. Elias tensed. "What the hell is that?" A black silicone toy, slim at the tip and thicker toward the base, tapered elegantly. A thin wire trailed from it to a small remote in Victor's other hand, the kind of thing you ordered discreetly online and never talked about. "Insurance," Victor said simply. Elias laughed sharp, disbelieving. "You're joking." Victor didn't answer with words. He slicked the toy with lube from the same bottle they'd used last night, then pressed the tapered end against Elias's entrance. Still swollen and tender from being fucked raw, the muscle fluttered around the intrusion. "Relax," Victor murmured, almost gentle. "You took much worse last night." Elias hissed as the toy slid deeper, stretching him just enough to remind him of every brutal inch Victor had buried inside him hours earlier. When the flared base settled flush against his rim, Victor gave it a small twist, seating it perfectly. Elias's breath hitched. The fullness wasn't painful exactly, just constant, invasive, intimate in a way that made his face burn. Victor leaned down, pressed a slow open. Mouth kissed to the inside of Elias's thigh, then another, then he bit hard enough to leave a fresh mark. "Wear it all day," he said against skin. "Go to your classes, sit through your lectures, talk to your little friends, but every time it moves inside you, every time it buzzes, you'll remember exactly who put it there." He picked up the remote. Elias's eyes widened. "You're not." A soft, low vibration started, barely there. Just enough to make Elias's cock twitch and leak against his stomach. Victor watched his face with dark satisfaction. "Good boy." He turned it off again. Elias exhaled shakily. "You're insane." "Maybe." Victor kissed him once, slow, filthy, tongue claiming every corner of his mouth. "But you're going to keep it in until I take it out. If I find out you removed it, I'll know, and the punishment will make last night look like foreplay." Elias stared at him, heart hammering. Victor rolled off the bed, already reaching for a pair of dark sweatpants. "Shower, get dressed." "I'll have coffee waiting." He left the bedroom without another word. Elias lay there for a long minute, thighs trembling, the toy a quiet, wicked weight inside him. He could take it out, right now, walk away, tell Victor to fuck off and keep his money, but the company would collapse by Friday. And worse, some sick, quiet part of him didn't want to. He dragged himself to the enormous marble bathroom, showered until the water ran cold, and dressed in the clothes Victor had laid out on the counter. Slim black jeans, soft grey hoodie, brand, new sneakers still in the box. Everything fit perfectly, of course it did. Victor was waiting in the kitchen, 2 travel mugs ready. He handed one over, then cupped Elias's jaw and kissed him again. Deep, possessive tasting of black coffee. "Be good," he said softly. "I'll be watching." Elias left the penthouse with the taste of him still on his tongue and a remote-controlled vibrator locked inside his body. The first buzz came during his 9 a.m. literature seminar. He was halfway through annotating a passage on Wuthering Heights when the low hum started, subtle at first. Almost innocent, then it pulsed once, twice, 3 times in quick succession. Elias's pen skidded across the page. He clamped his thighs together under the desk, breath catching. Heat flooded his face. Across the table, a girl glanced up, frowning. "You okay?" "Fine," he croaked, "just cold." The vibration stopped. He exhaled. It started again 10 minutes later, stronger this time. A steady, rolling wave that made his hips jerk involuntarily. He bit the inside of his cheek until he tasted blood, forced himself to keep writing. The words blurred. By 11, during macroeconomics, Victor apparently decided subtlety was overrated. The toy kicked into a pulsing pattern, short bursts followed by longer, deeper throbs. Elias gripped the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles went white. Sweat beaded at his hairline. His cock was painfully hard, trapped against the tight denim, leaking enough that he could feel the damp spot spreading. He excused himself to the bathroom, locked himself in a stall, leaned his forehead against the cool tile and tried not to sob. The vibration didn't stop, it built. And built until he was shaking, thighs slick inside his jeans, biting his fist to keep quiet. He came like that standing fully clothed in a campus bathroom stall, untouched, the toy still buzzing mercilessly inside him. His knees buckled. He had to brace himself against the wall. When it finally stopped, he was a wreck, pants damp, face flushed, legs barely holding him up. He didn't go to his last class. He took the subway back to the penthouse instead, every step grinding the toy deeper, every jolt of the train sending fresh sparks up his spine. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened, Elias stumbled into the living room, already tearing at his hoodie. Victor was waiting on the sofa, legs spread, remote in one hand, glass of whiskey in the other. He looked calm, controlled. Like he'd been waiting all day for exactly this moment. Elias dropped to his knees in front of him without being told, clothes shed in a frantic trail behind him, jeans, briefs, socks, until he was naked again, trembling, whole clenching desperately around the toy. "Please," he rasped. Voice wrecked. "Take it out. I can't anymore. Please, Victor." Victor set the glass down, reached out and tipped Elias's chin up with 2 fingers. "Look at you," he murmured, thumb brushing over Elias's swollen bottom lip. "So pretty when you beg." He pressed the remote. The toy roared to life at maximum, deep, relentless, merciless. Elias arched, a broken sob tearing out of him. His cock jerked, leaking steadily onto the marble. Thighs shook. Tears spilled down his cheeks. Victor watched for a long moment, eyes dark with hunger. Then he stood, loomed over Elias like a storm cloud, and finally reached between his legs, but not to remove the toy, to press it deeper. Elias screamed. Victor's other hand tangled in his hair, yanking his head back. "You did so well today," he said softly. "Now you're going to come again. Just like this while I watch." The vibration didn't let up. Elias shattered, sobbing, shaking, coming so hard his vision whited out, spilling across Victor's bare feet. Only then did Victor switch the toy off. He knelt, gathered Elias's trembling body against his chest, and kissed the tears from his cheeks. "Good boy," he whispered. Elias buried his face in Victor's neck and tried not to think about how much he already craved the next time. Chapter 4. Settling in the first week felt like stepping into someone else's dream. Elias woke up every morning in sheets that cost more than his old dorm rent for a semester. The walk-in closet, bigger than his childhood bedroom, had already been filled by the time he arrived home from his last class on move-in day. Rows of hangers held slim black jeans from Emiri, cashmere sweaters in shades of charcoal and midnight, leather jackets with butter, soft lining. Shoes lined up like soldiers, Balenciaga, St. Laurent, sneakers still in their pristine boxes. A sleek MacBook Pro sat on the glass desk in the corner next to noise, cancelling headphones and an iPad Pro with the pencil already attached. Even the phone charger was braided leather. Victor had thought of everything, and then some. A black Amex card arrived the next morning, delivered by courier in a matte envelope with no return address. The name embossed on the front was simply Elias, no limit mentioned. Victor had handed it over with coffee and a kiss to the temple. "Buy whatever you want," he'd said. "Clothes, books, toys, doesn't matter, just use it." Elias had stared at the card like it might bite. "This feels obscene." Victor's smile had been slow. Good. The trips started small. A weekend in the Hamptons, private driver, oceanfront house, sex on every surface until Elias couldn't walk straight. Then Paris for 48 hours because Victor had a meeting and decided Elias should come along. They barely left the suite at the Ritz. Room service trays piled up outside the door while Victor fucked him against the windows overlooking the Seine, whispering filthy French into his ear just to hear him whimper. It should have felt like winning the lottery. Instead it felt like drowning in velvet. Victor was always watching. Not in an obvious way, not at first, but Elias noticed the small things, the way Victor's phone screen lit up with notifications from the building's security app whenever Elias left or returned. The discreet black car that idled outside the university gates on rainy afternoons, driver waiting to take him home. The way Victor always knew exactly when Elias's last class ended, text already waiting, cars downstairs, don't make me wait. Elias told himself it was care, protection. The kind of thing rich people did. He almost believed it. His friends noticed first. They used to text in a chaotic group chat memes, complaints about professors, plans to get drunk on cheap beer. Now the replies were slow, sparse. Elias kept meaning to answer, but the messages piled up while he was sprawled on Victor's couch, legs over Victor's lap, new AirPods in while Victor scrolled emails and absently stroked the inside of Elias's thigh. One Tuesday, during a rare moment when Victor was in back-to-back meetings, Elias met up with the old group at the campus coffee shop. They stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Dude," said Milo, the one with the perpetually messy bun and too many piercings, "you look expensive." Elias laughed. It sounded forced even to him. "A new hoodie, that's all." Milo snorted. "That's not a hoodie. That's a small country's GDP." They asked questions, where he'd been living, why he'd ghosted group study sessions, why he never came to movie nights anymore. Elias deflected with half-truths. Family stuff, got a better place now, closer to campus actually. They didn't push, not really, but later that week, during a late-night cram session in the library, Elias ended up at a table with Theo. Theo was in his advanced psych seminar, tall, easy smile, dark curls that fell into his eyes when he laughed. He flirted the way some people breathed, effortlessly, constantly, no pressure behind it, just warmth. They were working on a joint presentation. Theo leaned close to point at something on Elias's laptop screen, shoulder brushing Elias's. His knee knocked Elias's under the table and stayed there. "You smell different," Theo said quietly, teasing, "like money and really good cologne." Elias flushed. "Shut up." Theo grinned. "I like it." "Suits you." They talked for another hour, easy, laughing, normal. Elias felt something loosen in his chest, like he could breathe again. He didn't notice the black SUV parked across the street until he stepped outside. Victor was leaning against it, arms crossed, coat open over a charcoal suit. Face unreadable in the sodium glow of the streetlights, Elias's stomach dropped. Theo walked out a minute later, saw the car, saw Victor, and raised an eyebrow. "Ride, something like that," Elias muttered. Theo clapped him on the shoulder. "Friendly, casual, see you Thursday." "Don't flake on the presentation, rich boy." He walked off toward the dorms. Victor didn't move until Theo was out of sight. Then he opened the passenger door. "Get in." Elias obeyed. The drive back was silent except for the low hum of the engine and the rain starting again. Victor's knuckles were white on the wheel. Inside the penthouse, Elias dropped his bag by the door. Victor locked it behind them. Slow, deliberate. Who was that? Victor asked, voice calm, too calm. Classmate, Theo, we're doing a project together. Victor stepped closer. Elias backed up instinctively until his shoulders hit the wall. He touched you. It was a shoulder clap. Jesus, Victor's hand shot out, cupped the back of Elias's neck, not hard, but firm, thumb pressed against his pulse. You smiled at him, Victor said quietly. Like you used to smile at me. Elias's heart slammed against his ribs. I smiled because he's funny, because he's normal, because he doesn't track my every fucking step. Victor's eyes darkened. You think he's normal? He leaned in until their mouths were a breath apart. He wants to fuck you. I saw it, the way he looked at your mouth, your hands. He wants what's mine. Elias swallowed. You're being paranoid. Am I? Victor's other hand slid down Elias's body, slow, possessive until it cupped him through his jeans. Elias hissed as the pressure made his cock twitch. You're hard, Victor murmured against his lips, thinking about him, or thinking about how I'm going to remind you who you belong to. Elias's breath shuddered out. Both, fuck, neither, I don't know. Victor kissed him then, brutal, claiming, teeth and tongue and possession. When he pulled back, Elias's lips were swollen, eyes glassy. Thursday, Victor said softly, your presentation, you're coming straight home after. No coffee, no library, no Theo. Elias stared at him. Victor's thumb traced Elias's bottom lip, or I'll make sure he never looks at you again. The threat hung between them, quiet, lethal, wrapped in velvet. Elias closed his eyes. He should have fought. He should have screamed. Instead, he leaned forward and kissed Victor back, slow, desperate, surrendering, because the cage was warm. And the outside world suddenly felt very, very cold. Chapter 5. The first jealous outburst Thursday came too fast. Elias had spent the day hyper, aware of every glance Theo threw his way during the presentation, nothing overt, just the usual easy smiles, the casual brush of fingers when passing notes, the low laugh when Elias cracked a dry joke about Freud. It was normal, innocent. The kind of thing Elias used to do without thinking twice, but now every second felt like evidence he'd have to explain later. The presentation went well. Professor nodded approval. Classmates clapped politely. Theo slung an arm around Elias's shoulders for half a second in celebration, quick, friendly, gone before Elias could even tense. Drinks later to celebrate. Theo asked as they packed up. Elias hesitated. Can't, got plans. Theo's smile didn't falter. Next time then. Don't be a stranger, rich boy. Elias forced a laugh and left. The black SUV was waiting at the curb again. Driver opened the door without a word. Elias slid into the back seat, heart already pounding. Victor wasn't in the car. That should have been a relief. It wasn't. Back at the penthouse, Elias dropped his bag and headed straight for the shower, trying to wash away the faint scent of library coffee and Theo's cologne that clung to his hoodie. When he emerged in sweatpants and one of Victor's oversized shirts, the living room was dark except for the city glow through the windows. Victor stood at the bar, pouring whiskey into a tumbler. No greeting, no kiss, just the slow clink of ice. Elias lingered in the doorway. Hey. Victor didn't look up. How was the presentation? Fine, good grade, probably. A long sip, and Theo, Elias's stomach twisted. He was a fine, we nailed it. Victor finally turned. His face was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that made Elias's skin prickle. He put his arm around you. Elias blinked. It was for like 2 seconds, celebrating, that's it. Victor set the glass down with deliberate care, celebrating. Yes, Victor crossed the room in slow, measured steps. Elias held his ground until the last second, then backed up instinctively until his spine met the wall. Victor stopped inches away, loomed. "You let him touch what's mine," he said quietly. Elias's throat clicked. "It wasn't like that." Victor's hand shot out, fast, precise, gripping Elias's jaw, tilting his face up. "I saw the footage," Victor said. "Security camera outside the psych building. I saw his hand on your shoulder, saw you smile." Elias's pulse hammered under Victor's fingers. "You're spying on me now. I'm protecting what's mine." "That's not protection. That's—" Victor's thumb pressed harder against Elias's bottom lip, silencing him. "Tell me," Victor murmured, "did it feel good, having someone else's hands on you, even for a second?" Elias jerked his head, trying to break free. Victor didn't let him. "Answer me." "No," Elias spat. "It felt like nothing, because I was thinking about you the whole fucking time." "Happy?" Victor's eyes darkened. Something flickered there, satisfaction, hunger, rage. Then he released Elias's jaw, only to grab his wrist and drag him toward the bedroom. Elias stumbled after him, anger rising hot in his chest. "Let go. We're talking about this. We're done talking." Victor shoved him through the doorway, kicked it shut, and pinned him face first against the wall. Elias's cheek pressed to cool plaster. Victor's body crowded in behind him, hard chest to his back, hips grinding forward so Elias could feel exactly how angry he was. "You think you can smile at him?" Victor growled against his ear. "Think you can let him touch you and then come home to me like nothing happened?" Elias struggled uselessly. "I didn't do anything wrong." Victor's hand slid around to Elias's throat, not choking, just holding, possessive. "Controlling. You exist for me," Victor said, voice low and lethal. "Your smiles, your laughs, your body, every fucking breath, mine." Elias's eyes burned. "I'm not your property." Victor pressed harder against him, erection grinding into the small of Elias's back. "You are," he whispered. "And deep down you love it." Elias twisted, managed to turn enough to glare over his shoulder. "Fuck you." Victor smiled, slow, dangerous. He spun Elias around, slammed him back against the wall, and kissed him like he was trying to devour him whole. Teeth clashed, tongues fought. Elias bit Victor's lip hard enough to draw blood. Victor growled, shoved a thigh between Elias's legs, and ground up until Elias gasped. Then the phone on the nightstand and buzzed. Victor ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. Victor broke the kiss, breathing hard. Reached over and snatched the phone. He glanced at the screen. His expression didn't change, but something cold settled behind his eyes. He answered without putting it on speaker. "Yes." A male voice on the other end, muffled, panicked. Elias couldn't make out words, only tone, fear, pain, pleading. Victor listened for 10 seconds, then, "Good, remember that next time you think about touching him." He hung up. Elias stared. Who was that? Victor tossed the phone onto the bed. Theo. Elias's blood went cold. "What did you do?" Victor stepped closer again. "I made sure he understands boundaries." Elias shoved at his chest hard. Victor didn't budge. "You hurt him." Victor caught Elias's wrists, pinned them above his head against the wall. "He'll live," Victor said flatly. "Broken nose. Couple cracked ribs. He'll be in the hospital overnight, but he'll walk away, and he'll never come near you again." Elias's vision tunneled. "You fucking monster." Victor leaned in until their foreheads touched. "I'm the monster who keeps you safe," he said softly, "from people like him. From people like your father, from the world that would chew you up and spit you out." Elias's voice cracked. "I didn't ask you to do that. You didn't have to." Tears burned Elias's eyes, rage, fear, something darker he refused to name. "I hate you," he whispered. Victor's grip on his wrists tightened. "No, you don't." He kissed him again, slower this time, deeper, like he was trying to crawl inside Elias's skin. Elias fought for half a second, then he kissed back, fierce, desperate, hating himself for it. Victor released his wrists only to shove Elias's sweatpants down, spin him around again, and press him face, first to the wall. "You're going to take your punishment," Victor rasped, yanking Elias's hips back, "and you're going to thank me for it." Elias braced his forearms against the plaster, breathing ragged. Victor didn't bother with prep beyond spit and the lube he always kept in the nightstand and drawer. He pushed in hard, deep, one brutal thrust that made Elias cry out. "Say it," Victor demanded, pulling back only to slam home again. "Say you're mine." Elias's nails scraped the wall. "Fuck you." Another punishing thrust. "Say it." Elias broke on the next one, voice shattering. "I'm yours, fuck. I'm yours." Victor fucked him like he was trying to carve the words into Elias's bones. When they came, Elias first, untouched, sobbing against the wall. Victor seconds later, buried deep and growling. Neither of them moved for a long time. Victor finally pulled out, turned Elias around, and gathered him against his chest. Elias didn't fight. He just stood there, shaking, letting Victor stroke his hair like he hadn't just ruined someone's face for looking at him the wrong way. "I'll never let anyone take you from me," Victor murmured into his hair. Elias closed his eyes. He didn't answer. Because the scariest part wasn't the violence. It was how much safer he already felt in the cage.
That's all for today on Cherry Blossom BL Story. Thank you for watching. What do you think about this chapter? Did you like it, or do you think something unexpected is coming? Comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories.